All right, let's go out to Savannah, Georgia, and talk to Sophia. Sophia, how are we doing? What's going on?
Pretty good. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. What's happening?
All right. So I'm calling because I wanted to ask you or get your opinion, your help. I have an 18-year-old daughter who basically has she doesn't have a good relationship with her father.
Where'd he go?
Well, he's around. I can give you a little bit of a backstory. So him and we were never married. We never lived together, but he would always see her, up until about 13. When she turned 13, they had a pretty good relationship. She'd go over there every other weekend and during the week and whatnot. At 13, she started playing, sports, softball to be, precise. And so, he got her into really competitive teams and whatnot. And it seemed like it was more so for him than it was for her eventually.
Yep.
So she wasn't really enjoying it as much as he wanted her to.
Yep.
And so
She wasn't fulfilling his dreams as much as
exactly.
he needed them to be fulfilled by his daughter. So ridiculous.
Exactly. So eventually she got out of the competitive teams and she just stuck with high school ball, and middle school or whatnot. After that, it seemed like their relationship just went downhill, because he would always complain and say, she didn't want the responsibility. She didn't want.
She was 13.
Right.
Of course she doesn't. Oh my gosh.
Right.
You are pushing my buttons, and it is early this morning.
I
Sophia.
know it. Well, tell me about it.
Jeez. Okay, let me just pause right here. To every parent listening, your kid is not a window through whose sole purpose is for you to relive your childhood. And your kids, think about it. It's another kid tossing a ball and another kid hitting it with a stick. Or chasing us. Anyway, all right, I can get derailed here, and it's too early to be drinking. So go ahead.
Okay, so basically, the years pass by, and she's 18 now, so she just graduated high school. And throughout the years, he just kind of got a little out of her life, little by little. I think the whole softball thing was what triggered it. And then he would just say, "Oh, well, when I call her, she barely talks to me," or if I text her, she just answers with hi or no, or, one word answers or whatnot. And I remember I'd always tell him, well, she's a teenager. I don't think she particularly wants to sit down and have a huge conversation about life with her dad right now, or her mom for that matter, So he would always complain about that.
He is an immature coward.
Yeah.
And if you've listened to this show, I don't throw that around a lot. But I'm so sick. The only thing worse, and I get more frustrated over, I get frustrated over kids' unfettered access to social media. That's number one. I get super frustrated by parents' obsession with travel sports and forcing their kids along and then saying it's for them. And I especially am sick of kids being responsible for making mom and dad feel special and loved. And that kind of, she just responds with hi or whatever. It's the parents' job to show up in that relationship because they're kids, right?
Right.
Madness,
right.
Madness.
And that's what I've always told him because he would ask me, "Oh, well, what do you think the issue is?" And I said,
he's the issue. He's the issue.
Right. I would tell him, I think you're the one who needs to show up. You're the adult. Now that she's 18, he said, well, she's an adult now. You can't use that same excuse. And I said, well, you never really tried either, And so I guess at the end of the day, what I'm wanting to know is if I should tell her, hey, why don't you try and have a relationship with him? Just because I don't want her feeling like, what did I do for my dad not to love me?
She's going to feel that no matter what because her dad doesn't.
Right.
So you're trying to create a fantasy that's not real.
Okay.
I am heartbroken for you that your daughter's dad is such a spineless coward that he's walked out on his daughter. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Because I know that you love your daughter a lot and you don't want to see her hurt like she's going to hurt.
Right.
And she is.
Yeah,
'Cause her
and she
dad's a
tells me she doesn't, it doesn't bother her,
it doesn't.
but it
Of
does.
course, she has to say that.
I know it does.
She has to say that. Um, Jeez, man. Yes, she is going to miss her dad, and she is going to find all sorts of substitutes in life to fill that massive, massive hole in her heart. Um, but he's a spineless coward. I mean, that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. Even the language of, well, she's an adult now, you can't use that. Yes, you can. Because I've seen 70-year-old parents who are abusive and who were dogmatic and who were obsessive about, this is my religion or my rules or I'm right. And they finally dropped that charade nonsense and they said, hey, you're my kid. I love you. And the kid was 38.
Yeah.
And I've seen healing there too. But it has to come from mom and dad because they're the parent.
Yeah.
And your sweet little girl doesn't have that. And so here's the deal. The only thing I can tell you here, I don't have like a clinical study to back up what I'm going to say. I'm just going to tell you that if I was sitting across from my daughter and her mom had just mysteriously left and then would say things like, whenever I text her, she just writes back one word letter, so she doesn't even like me. What stupid crap like that. By the way, I do want to put a pin in something you said before I get back to it. I know I'm all over the place because this just gets me all fired up. The whole idea that quote unquote kids just naturally pull apart when they're teenagers is actually not true. It's not borne out in the scientific literature. It's not real. They do it because they have to survive. There is some, and I don't mean this in a gross, abusive way. I mean this in men become terrified of their daughter's sexuality and they don't know what to do with it. And so they're not creepers, they're not abusers, they just disappear. And that child has to have somebody in a relationship. Moms have a weird interaction with their daughters at times, especially teenage daughters. And it's easier to just kind of back up. I don't want to get in the way. They want to be with their friends. So we have a generation of kids who are being raised by their peers. And we've heard the studies that, peer influence is more than parent influence. But that's because we have become wholly unlikable people as parents. We've abdicated our responsibility to schools and to screens and to other peers. And even my buddy, was like a youth minister, parents come up to him and it's like, hey, you're going to teach them this, this, and this. And it's like, that's your job. You're the parent, right? So parents have outsourced everything. And now kids, their parents aren't trustworthy. And so of course they're going to hang out with other people. But let me tell you something. When you meet kids who trust their parents and whose parents are fun, likable people who also hold them accountable, I'm not talking about just chaotic, but I'm talking about who are good, solid adults. It's incredible to watch. Their kids love their parents. Of course, they love their boyfriend or girlfriend and their friends, but they love their parents. It's not a weird thing like it is in so many millions of households. So I want to put a pin in that. If I'm you and I'm having this conversation, I would sit down before my daughter goes to college and let her know something was wrong with dad, not you. And I'm heartbroken and sad that dad chose immaturity and dad chose other things. But that she is not the problem. Dad is.
Yeah. And I've had that conversation with her because, like on Father's Day or on his birthday, if she texts him or calls, the first thing he says, oh, you finally remembered.
Oh, gosh.
Or, oh, you remembered because it's the special day or whatever. So I'm thinking, why would he even do that to her?
Because he's a spineless coward. He's an immature. She's a child. He's a child.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So,
but here's what you cannot do. Sophia, you can't do this. You cannot put this burden on her.
Right. Okay.
And you can tell her, I'm really heartbroken that you don't have a good relationship with your dad, because that's such an important part of human development, is having a good relationship with your mom and your dad, and you don't have that. I'm so sorry. I think that conversation is true and real, and maybe woman to woman saying, "Hey, here's how you might go looking for that relationship out in the world. Don't," or "Here's how to do this wisely," right? Because that leaning will be there, is to help fill up that gap. But oh man, don't put the emotional regulation of an immature dad on an 18-year-old girl. She can't carry that weight. It's not her responsibility. At some
Right.
point, if she chooses, and again, not as an 18-year-old, I'm talking about a 22, 25, like she's established, she's got a job, she's figuring out life. If she chooses to say, I want to be in relationship with this guy, I want to have something to do with him. I know he's immature. I'm not coming to him to fulfill my needs. Like, I'm not coming to him as a daughter trying to be full and loved, but I do want to know my old man. Um, that's totally her idea, and I would 100% support that. But
Okay.
she would be going, it's almost informational at that point. It's almost, I want to learn about myself. It's self exploration, more than it is some sort of cathartic healing relationship. Dad left her,
Hmm.
man. In every stage, he's left her. And when
Yeah.
she quit, and here's the meta. When she quit performing for him, when she could
Yeah.
perform for him, he was in. And when she could make him feel good about himself, she was in. But he didn't have the capacity to make her feel loved and seen. And I hate that for
Right.
everybody. I'm sorry. But for all the, oh gosh, all the parents listening, it's not your kid's job to make you feel loved. I don't care how old they are. It's your job. It's your job to make them feel loved. And if they don't text you the right way, or they don't call you the right way, or they do call you, don't start off with passive aggressive. Oh, so now you decide to just answer the phone and say, "Oh my gosh, everything in my day is better because I get to hear your voice. I'm so glad you called." And by the way, don't wait for your kids to call. Be an adult. Be a grown up. Be a parent. You call. Let them tell you, let them roll their eyes and you keep calling and keep calling, because never let them think for a second, I don't have a safe place to go with him. I don't have a safe place to go with her. Golly.